get them to quit blinking so much.
You know what? Commercial accounts. Okay, I've never been in commercial accounts very big, except on mom and pop BOPs and stuff like that. Jesse and them, you know what they pay for insurance every year?
Oh, I bet they pay probably $50,000+ a year.
No, $380,000.
See, that's my
damn premium is. But now that, remember, they do trash pickup.
Yeah, they do, right. So the commercial,
getting out of that.
They got commercial auto. They've got the
Well, they've had 2 claims off. Hey, man.
Hey, nice shirt. I like the seersucker.
Yeah.
But I'd love to get some enormous commercial auto accounts.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got some, but you're looking at usually $2,000 to $3,000 per vehicle. It's the premium.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, the problem is those are so volatile, and we used to do car dealership kind of states did. We did school bus systems, and I had a bunch of them around here. I had Chronic, and I had Sigma, and they McDonald's somewhere about it. Bell, whatever. And they stayed 2 or 3 years. Man, I was fat dog with all that kind of commission coming out. But the next year, somebody come in and bought it.
Yeah, they shop the big accounts. I found out they shop every year or two anyway.
They do, yeah, and I understand.
And
that.
so they do, but then it's
Yeah. Well, we got one.
I had I remember the first big one was I come in with a $60,000 check. It was like my first year. I'm waving. Look at it. I had a copy of it, and I threw it on Dan's desk because I was running through the office, and he's like, "Way to go, Doug!" And I was like, and so I kept it for a year, and then on year 2. They went out. They didn't even tell me they were shopping.
Oh yeah.
Called them up for the new one. So we are able to cut you $5,000, and then when I started looking at it, all they did was raise the deductible from $1,000 to $2,500 and change some things that could have.
And then they'll say, "Well, why didn't you do that?" You got to think of that.
Well, I show them all the different examples.
You better show them high deductibles.
Yeah.
So if you don't know when they're going to do it.
But I mean, it wasn't a big commission, but this one guy had a shopping center up in Duck Village. He was paying $12,000 a year, and got him below $5,000. He thought I was a saint. Gave me his other shopping center, Tucker.
Out in the middle of the street.
$8,000 to $35,000.
Down 6 months later.
So you lost it.
I lost it. After I spent all that time, it was even less than a year.
Yeah.
That's fun.
That camera don't ever work.
Well, they're chasing dollars.
I've had them do that climbing in chairs. I don't know why they got to go that
They come right up to the edge of the porch.
If you want to do like
They got a form.
The dog will get off his porch. She sat out on the porch, growl at her. She won't get off.
Well, we do have a quorum.
That's 3.
Got 4. You can't quit counting yourself.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I don't count you. I'm here to walk right in the middle of the street.
What we do, you're right.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Smith. Happy day. I'd like to call the workshop of the City of Griffin Board of Commissioners July 24, 2018 to order. Welcome to all here. I guess everybody wants to sit on my right versus the left. That's okay though. Discuss demo the partnership with Invoice Cloud and Pay Near Me that allows City of Griffin utility customers to pay their bills with cash at the CVS Pharmacy, 7-Eleven, Family Dollar, Casey's General Stores, and Ace Cash Express stores in the city or state. Jack Poland will address. Anywhere in the state of Georgia.
anywhere in the country.
Anywhere in the country. Correct. Anywhere in the country.
With cash.
Todd's going to be showing you the link. But basically all this is doing is giving the utility customers the ability to pay win cash more than having to come into the city of Griffin. One, they can do CVS Pharmacy. All of these locations are not in Griffin, of course. The two that are is the Family Dollar General and CVS Pharmacy. And we'll give you a quick demo of the Pay Near Me partnering with our Invoice Cloud is how this is going to work.
Okay.
Todd, you want to call it?
Yeah, Miss Teresa, will you play that video for them? I don't know if we have.
Is that not working? Well, I know it's not on.
That's a thing.
Do I need to put a help desk ticket in, Todd? Yeah, it's coming up.
They should see it on there.
Okay.
This is a video that Brian Miller and myself made just to kind of show how it works, in the simplest version. But if you want to we can watch that real quick. Michael, will you bring the screen down a little bit more? There you go. That's good. Pretty simple.
So county customers, the folks that
anybody who has a city utility bill can go to the Invoice Cloud portal, which is our customer web portal. Currently, you pay your credit cards online with now. There's a new option that says pay with cash. So you just run through the process of generating that barcode, and then you can take that barcode and go pay with cash at those available retailers.
And on the payment, it's got to be cash. It can't be a debit card.
It has to be, to do it this way, it has to be cash.
That way there's no fee or any
Correct.
charge. If they
Correct.
is there an option to pay with a debit card, credit card for?
If you're going to do that, you would do it directly in the portal. You wouldn't go to the store to do it.
Okay.
You would do it right there on Invoice Cloud through Customer Web, all online. So you can't go to CVS or Family Dollar and pay with the debit card or credit card or check.
And will we be opening it up to the 7 folks that live out of town or are on vacation? They can use 7-Eleven or any of these?
Correct, yeah. So if you're anywhere in the country, I mean, you could be in California, and if you need to pay your bill and you don't want to pay the online credit card processing fee, and you need to get your bill paid and you have cash, you can pull up the app. It'll give you the locations that are near you, and you can select where you want to go pay the cash, and you pay the amount of your bill, and that's it. It's pretty convenient. We thought about people who live in places in the county, and if they're traveling and they want to get their bill paid and they do not want to pay the credit card fee, this will help those.
Well, there are plenty of dollar stores out there around.
Yeah. So.
And how quick does it post on the online app? I guess there's a balance that shows on your account. Once that's applied, how long does it take for it to show credit?
This posts in about 15 minutes to process. Once the system takes everything through, about 15 minutes is how long it takes to post into our Cogsdale system. So our utility portal will show that it's paid within 15 minutes.
But will their application show a paid account once it's? How long does it take?
Once Cogsdale's updated, then the app will show that it's been
paid.
paid.
Following, usually within 24 hours?
It'll be within 15 minutes or so. As soon as if they open it and it goes and refreshes and looks for current information, it'll show that it's been paid.
Are we going to print these on their bill, the barcode, have everybody's barcode?
No, we're not generating the barcode because the barcodes are different for every location. So if you go to CVS, it's one barcode. If you go to Family Dollar, it's a different barcode.
Okay.
We can't generate that generic barcode.
And each store has a different barcode.
Correct.
From what it looked like on that.
Correct. Yeah. If you know you're going to do this regularly, you could print the same barcode and you could use that one over and over again. Like you could just save it on your phone or get it texted to you, and you could go in there and use it. But if you're going to go to different locations, it's different per location.
Now, what about our citizens who go and don't have their bill with them or a smartphone? Because that does happen.
You can print the barcode from a computer if you have access to it. I mean, if you're generating the Pay Near Me code, you're going to the website through an app or through the web portal at some point. There's not a go to CVS and have them look up your bill option.
Right.
That's not an option.
Right.
There's a little bit of
people who ask that. Though.
Yeah, I understand. There's a little bit of work you do on the front end to make that payment, but when you're there, it does give you that ability. It's just one more option to take payments out of the many that we already have.
Any other questions?
Keep in mind those are Family Dollars, not Dollar General. Dollar General does not do it. It's only Family Dollar.
Okay.
And we have a couple of those in town, including a new one just outside the city on North Hill Street.
Family Dollar.
I'm not sure if it's open yet or not. But
Is that a Family Dollar there across from Crystal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
That is next to Murphy's.
any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Moving into the next item, presentation on a proposed capital cost recovery fee for the wastewater department for 2018. Dr. Keller will address. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Bear with me. These are new glasses. You guys are fuzzy, but I got to have them to read here. Eventually, I'll just get used to it. I just got them yesterday. The capital cost recovery fee was created in 1998 for sewer. There wasn't any significant amount of infrastructure upgrades during that period of time. There was a couple of rehabs, but in light of the fact that you just spent $19.1 million at Potato Creek and $16 million at Cabin Creek in debt, and then another $8 million at Shoal Creek, it was time to review the capital cost recovery fee. In front of you, I've handed out a piece of paper because I thought about it this weekend how I could best describe and answer most of your questions. If you look at residential, and Raftalis is our rate consultant, is also the person that did the evaluation of the assets, both new and old, and the depreciation and what had to be deducted. If you look at residential today, that first line, your capital cost recovery fee, if you're going to build a residential home, is $2,200. The review after we had all the assets and did all the back and forth with how the information on the sewer system, all the lines were evaluated and had a price put to them. The new capital cost recovery fee will be $3,500, pardon me. All right, so that's residential. And I figured you'd want to know what it looked like on a commercial or an apartment complex, and these are real examples. The commercial example that you have on your piece of paper in front of you is Aldi's. All right, so in the process of looking at sewer and I&I, in 1998, the amount allotted per ERU was 260 gallons per day. In the new assessment, it's 400 gallons per day, and you'll see a little bit of a change in the formula. If you look at what the current ERU and the capital cost recovery fee for Aldi is, it was $9,832. Under the new capital cost recovery fee, which they've already paid theirs and they're up and running, that capital cost recovery fee would have been $10,168. So you can see a little bit of difference there, and they're paying for, obviously, the right to have capacity in that wastewater treatment facility. If you go down to the apartment complex one, this is one we're dealing with now in the county. It's called Tranquility. It's a 120-unit apartment complex. You can see at the existing capital cost recovery fee, it's $137,077 for that apartment complex, a 120-unit complex. At least that's what they're telling us. We have not seen the final design and numbers. If applied with the new capital cost recovery fee, you can see there's a difference of $141,750 for that unit. So there's about a $5,000 difference there, okay, with the increase of the capital cost recovery fee. And I thought that would probably be the best way to try to address this morning, is to give you real-life examples so you can understand what's happening.
So on the apartments, based on 120 units, they're paying currently $1,142 per unit, and they'll go to $1,181. If that's my understanding.
11.4. Where are you getting?
So you've got 120 units.
120 units according to
$137,077.
That's correct.
So that comes out to only $1,142 per unit and $1,181 on the new rate. Yet people that have a single family are paying $3,200.
Well, that's the math, yeah.
So my question is, if a single family residence is paying $3,500, why wouldn't a apartment building have a same type of money?
Because there's guidelines that give us in Metcalf EBI, the fifth edition of the averaging of what a per person per apartment complex would use. These are the numbers that they've given us so far for that particular. And this is just an example because we don't have all the information yet. But to answer your question, you have a starting point, which is $8.83 per gallon to produce it. And when you look at your existing number, that and plus your I&I factor, that's how that the $3,500 per house is used and calculated.
Just being the devil's advocate, trying to figure out why wouldn't we charge per unit $3,500 for an apartment building if we're going to charge a single family? It looks like we're rewarding folks to build apartments versus building single family houses.
It will vary though by the type of apartment complex. If it's a larger complex, it's going to be probably a lesser fee with the not grant.
Yeah.
Right, but a 3-bedroom apartment is,
probably more equivalent to the single-family home.
but we don't.
This is just a capacity recovery fee, right?
Correct.
Yes, for sure.
If a person is building a house, an owner, a residential owner, that's a one-time charge for them.
That's correct. Usually
It would be for the owner of the apartment complex, so it really don't have anything to do with the resident.
if you when you
Right, so that's my question is why don't we charge the same thing for an apartment building as we do for a single-family residence?
You're saying equate the apartments to a single-family unit. One unit in an apartment, it all pays
is equal to.
Are you saying they use a whole lot less service than a residential
I
house
think
would?
that's the answer. They probably do.
Not necessarily, though. I mean, a single lady in a two-bed or a couple in a 3-bedroom brick ranch house. I mean, I use 3,300 gallons with just 3 of us in the house,
Right.
average per month. Yeah, I see customers that have an apartment that've got 5 people living in there, and their water bill's based on 5,000 or 6,000 gallons. So to say that a household uses more water than an apartment, I think if you did a survey, you'd see that it's completely equal, or it all depends on how many folks are in it.
that are in the
I'm
apartment.
just saying, why are we cutting ourselves short on the apartment side?
Well, that's the way the policy has been since 1998.
Well, I wasn't here in 1998, so I'm just asking.
Yeah, I'll just have to go back and review that particular scenario, because you go on flows, and when we looked at the flows, I understand what you're saying. I was going on what the average flow per person is in that apartment complex. So I'll have to go back and look at that
I'm
metric
looking at it
again.
as a per resident.
I understand what you're looking at. I just need to look at that metric to see, get a little more involved in it. But that was an example of what flows look like according to our scales.
So my position would be is that if we're going to put a larger burden upon commercial, which isn't that much more, but more on the residential side.
Right.
We should get the windfall of the apartment side.
I'll take a look at the flows in relationship to what you're asking. But this was just an example of what it does look like, because, excuse me, you need to understand that it isn't that big of an increase, but they are buying capacity and helping pay down debt on the money that we've just spent on the facilities.
But generally, I would like to see it dollar for dollar, being unit for unit equivalent in terms of residential.
Okay, I mean, that's not a problem. You guys
I
set
don't know what the rest of y'all's opinion is, but
I agree.
But that's kind of what it looks like. You've got a 7-page document from Raftellus explaining to you where we started, where we are today, and how they came up with those numbers. And that includes all our current expenditures included in the 3 GFA notes that we have for the upgrade of the facilities.
any questions, comments, criticism?
Yeah, I'm still kind of confused about what you're saying.
So right now, based on 120 units, the rate change would move them to a total cost of $141,750 to put 120 units in.
Okay, so that's
That's only $1,181 per unit compared to a single-family home would be paying $3,500.
And that's a simple calculation. I just don't have a calculator with
I'm
me.
not sure you can do it on a per unit basis. I think you have to go back and look at
I'll have to go back and review it.
average wastewater consumption.
I understand that, but I can prove to you that a couple living in a single-family home.
I think we need to look at the correlation, though.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
We had an apartment complex that instead of 120 units, they put 180 units on that same footprint.
Right, but generally apartments are commercial endeavors. And so why not make the commercial endeavors pay their fair share of what we're having to pay? I mean, the ratepayers that have been here forever.
If you got a single family that's paying a one-time fee for what they're getting, if you got an apartment complex, that's going to be that one line running to that main complex. It's not going to not gonna be, what you're saying is charge for what each resident, as a resident, pay at 120 different locations.
But if I build a 1,100 square foot house, say in the Lexington Square, or take a square foot ministry house, 1,100 square feet, they're not going to use any more or less water than a family that's living in an apartment building. So why do we sell short? I mean, the current ratepayers have been paying for the sewer system. As people want to tie into the system, why shouldn't they have to pay their fair share to?
I think you're making a good point, Doug. Take it back, talk to Rep, tell us about it. Come back to you.
I'll review the guidelines of Metcalf Eddy, and then I'll talk to Joe and see what other people are doing. It's not an issue. I mean, we can work that out.
Is it on the agenda for tonight to approve?
Mm-hmm. Should be.
So, calculating if at $3,500 at 120 units would be how much that developer would have to pay for that particular?
Let's see, 3 times. It'd be about 300.
20 times 3,500, $420,000. But if someone went and built a subdivision with 120 units, they're going to pay $420,000.
That'd be correct.
For a subdivision. So why should a subdivision, a household to household, they should be treated?
I'll get with Ralph Tellis and look at the guidelines and let y'all know. I mean,
good luck with that.
Because they didn't publish the guidelines. They just came up with the fee.
Don't have the answers, we'll pull it. If you don't answer today, we'll.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Keller. Next is presentation of LMIG 2019 proposal. Dr. Keller will address.
As you know, last year, after we finished the roundabout, we went in and cleaned up and did all the resurfaced the streets in 18. In 19, what we're asking you to do is for us to do approximately 9,500 feet of go from Old Atlanta Highway to the new intersection by the Second Baptist Church, milling and paving. That road's about gone. And so that's our proposal for next year, is to take 1.77 miles, that's what Experiment Street is, and mill it, pave it, and that would be the project for next year. And by the way, just
the intersection.
Yes, ma'am.
The intersection, North Griffin, McIntosh.
Yes, ma'am. And just by the way, through this process, found out, originally the GIS maps were created in 93, 94. I was always under the assumption that the map was correct. We had to do some historical research. Just for your information, all of Experiment Street is actually in the city.
Is the right-of-way on the railroad track side up across from UGA? So is it the curb or is it the?
That is the hardest question to answer in the world when you talk about railroads in the city of Griffin. Okay, Broad Street, according to the railroad, it's in the railroad. So basically, you look at the width, which varies on Experiment Street from 90 to 70, but we did go back historically and look at the tax maps, and the whole street is in the city. But that's the project for next year, and
it required some additional right-of-way. School Street Experiment.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's
The actual city limit came up to the railroad. The railroad itself, at that point, is the boundary of the city.
Okay.
So all the tracks, and then of course the Dundee property, the old Dundee property.
I mean, if you've never looked at a railroad map, good luck. I mean, part of Searcy Street is actually where the railroad tracks are.
Within the railroad itself.
Yeah.
So have we put this out for bid?
We will, yes, sir. And all we're doing now is inform you, because there's a package that the chairperson has to sign to send to District 3, and then they approve it. They've already allocated the money at $275,253.16 or whatever, but then our portion is, and if we had, obviously, if we had that T-Splosh passed back in 12, we would only pay 10%. We pay 30% because we didn't pass transportation splosh in this region.
Yeah, Frog had wings to fly to.
Yeah.
Everybody good with?
We really just need a consensus that that's the street that you want to designate the LMIG funding for. We realize there are a lot of them out there that need it, but that one's probably the worst at this point.
Everybody good with that?
All right, thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Keller.
Thank you.
All right. Next fun one is to discuss issues associated with yard waste pickup. Mr. Smith will address. Welcome back.
Well,
We got 2 new commissioners to get the hammer of this great.
yes, sir. It's been right at a year since we entered into the new contract. I believe it was August of 2017. We've had extensive public education on yard waste. However, we still seem to have some issues. Mainly the issues from the residential side are the piles are too big, the grass clippings are not bagged, and or the contents of the pile do not meet the requirements, or maybe the location of the piles do not meet the contract requirement. It's not all the residents' issues, because the contractor also has had some problems. Meeting the schedule, as you know, has been a problem. That's probably our deep-seated issue from long, long ago, is nobody can meet the schedule because yard waste is a pretty unique entity in that you have a schedule, you have a route, but you never know how much is out there. So you might get it all today and you might not. With the weather that we've had over this particular spring and summer, it's made it much more difficult to stay on schedule because the grass is growing fast, and we've had our share of storms, which makes limbs come down. So we've had a lot of debris out there, but it's always been an issue to meet schedule. The contractor has not been providing us the daily reports that the contract requires, so it's difficult for us to know exactly where they are and what their schedule is. And we've had a few issues with the restoration of damaged property. So we're back to discuss it again. The options remain the same as they have in the past. We can do away with it. The city can provide it. We can put it back out for bid for a new contractor. However, remember that the last time we did that, we didn't have many takers. And we can terminate the current contract that we have for calls with 30 days notice and go in a different direction. The staff, I don't know how many hours a day that staff deals with yard waste, but it's a lot everywhere from my office, code enforcement, and ultimately solid waste, and dealing with the public, not to mention citizen engagement, who has tried to educate the public, answer their questions, keep everybody up to date. So it's just untold hours that the entire staff spends on yard waste. So we just bring it back up for discussion again and look forward to your comments. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just kind of the history from the city, from our hearings that we had last year, basically folks said they wanted to keep, the response was folks wanted to keep it. I've heard folks say that they'd rather pay $20 a month, where from folks have said that they don't use it, so why should they have to pay for it? It's just been of all the phone calls I get, yard waste is probably the one area that it's a weekly issue. I've tried to almost memorize the different route schedule to try to keep on top of it, but of course there's certain residents in our community that make sure I know that their yard waste isn't picked up the day it's supposed to, and as many of you, so it's being consistent. One of Mr. McCord's favorite words is how do we get that consistency? How do we get this have a common sense approach to looking at things? I know if we thinking through the process, if someone does put a pile that exceeds the 4x4x8, say, why don't we build into the contract where the contractor will at least pick up 4x4x8 worth of material? Because the folks have put it out there, and it means 2 more weeks they come back and get the next piece of it. I don't know if there's some things that we could do that could make it less cumbersome, on that aspect?
I mean, I would think that would be more cumbersome because we're going to get multiple phone calls in wanting to know why they picked up part of it and didn't pick up all of it.
And I understand. And so some days I just say, let's just do away with it altogether.
Yes.
And when I talk to folks about that, they're like, oh, please don't do that.
Well, our surveys in the past, we haven't done one recently, but our surveys in the past has been right at 50-50 because we have a lot of residents that pay for it and never use it, and we have a lot of residents that use it continuously, and we have a lot of residents that use it just because they pay for it. So surveys in the past have been about 50-50.
And the conflict of us taking it over, right now we're at $8.75 per month. The estimate last year was $12.40.
Yeah, I anticipate that to be probably since increases in salaries, retirements, and other benefits.
And to buy new vehicles and everything.
You'd probably be pushing $15 a month to break even.
For who to break even?
And
What was
for
it
us to
before?
break even, you're probably pushing about $15 a month for us to get back in the business, and we currently can't find employees.
We took up the contract.
If we went back into providing the service, and we have difficulty finding employees to do our services at this point, much less adding another staff.
And to reflect back when we were doing it, we were charging about $860 per household. Do you remember, Phil?
Yes.
$860 per household, and we were losing about
$550.
About $500,000
a year was our shortfall.
Why can't we make it work at $12.40?
Well, that was last year's estimate, and now our retirement's gone up, our wages have gone up, and other equipment's gone up. So
you think 15 might get it?
I think you'd be pushing close to 15 to break even.
One of the problems is keeping CDL drivers.
Yeah.
I'm talking with Jesse and his partner, and I think that's something that I don't think the city wants to take on. I don't want to take it on as a city commissioner. There's another department that we got to fund and take care of because that's going to be more employees. Have we got an adequate amount of code people to go out and tell the customer that your pile exceeds the 4x8 or whatever? And at that point in time, how long does it take from the time that they send it in to Phil? I think he's supposed to get a fax daily. And you said that's not happening. Is that right?
Okay, well, I'm a little confused on which question you're asking. We do not have enough code enforcement people to handle our code enforcement issues in the city. So that's answer to question number one. But we went from 2 to 4 several years ago, and I don't know that we can add more than 4 code enforcement officers. The other question was, no, we do not get daily route sheets. We get a daily fax most days showing the piles that were out of compliance. And I think you guys actually get a copy of those.
We do.
But the amount of issues out of compliance would probably take another 2 or 3 code enforcement officers just to address yard waste, notwithstanding all of the other code enforcement issues that we have.
Kenny, I get your report almost daily from Phil to you, and the questions asked. Are these people notified by code enforcement? But I never see a response.
Well, I see a response rarely, but we do. The code enforcement does the best they can with all of the other code enforcement issues that they're dealing with. They try very hard to notify those people. Now, if a pile is out of compliance and today's your pickup day and it's bypassed, then that means it's going to lay there another 2 weeks. And we're going to get numerous phone calls wanting to know why it wasn't picked up.
Our education process to our community is on the website, or
we've done everything under God's sun that we can think of. God's sun, I mean the yellow sun in the sky. We've put trash can flyers, email blast, website, notes on utility bills, flyers and utility bills, everything other than door to door.
They're not paying attention.
I don't know what else. Every method of media, we can get it out, newspaper, radio. We've done everything I know to do to get the information out.
I think the best information has been not picking it up when it's not in compliance. I think that probably gets more attention than anything else.
It does, but then they call and they don't understand why, and then I have to call you, and then we figure out it's not compliant. So how do we connect the dots with them? I mean, I know you don't leave a note on a trash pile, but I don't know. To me, it seems that for these neighborhoods, I mean, just this week, I took hand flyers myself and redid the mailbox hangers, because this neighborhood, they should know, but they don't. They're transient. They're on the go. They didn't understand, and they have a community pile that apparently everybody starts dumping on that. You know where I'm talking about. So, I mean, where do we connect the dots with if a pile is not picked up? How do we know the difference? Is it overlooked? Are they not on schedule? Or how do they know it's not compliant? I think that's what I'm having difficulty with.
If code enforcement gets to it, they put a door hanger on their door telling them it's not in compliance.
Okay, so if it's a community lot, that's why they don't know.
Well, and that's a whole other issue. Community piles are a whole other issue. We have several communities that do joint piles, which is difficult to determine whether it's just a pile out of compliance or is it a joint pile, and how do you handle a joint pile that's way oversized. I don't know. I mean, it's the same in my neighborhood, which is relatively small, and most of my neighborhood is fairly engaged in what goes on in the community. And right across from my driveway is a mixed pile with grass clippings on top of limbs, on top of everything. And, I mean, you would think that people would understand after a year, but, I mean, we just continue this issue daily over and over and over again.
So I mentioned to you a couple months ago about the possibility of instead of putting the hanger on the door, but the actual pile, you drive a landscape stake in the ground, kind of like we do with the hazardous trees, and put a pink pink card on the tree stating this tree is going to be removed. You basically, almost in a way, shame the folks to say, there's a card stapled to a stake that's checked, what the issue is, and so
I mean, we can
that way
we can try that, but if they're not looking at if they're not looking at a door hanger hanging on their door, they're not going to look at a pile out.
But if there's a stake with a bright orange card that's stuck to it, like we do substandard housing, and the code enforcement goes by and says that pile doesn't meet, is out of compliance, they stake it, and then
so
Jesse.
What if they move the stake?
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I mean.
And the weather, you have to deal with the weather. So I mean, and we got to buy the stakes and have some cards made. But we'll try anything.
I'm just.
Yes, sir. I mean, we're ready to brainstorm.
The question, they call you and say they skipped my pile. What's the issue? If it's a community pile, it may be that the marking this is community piles aren't allowed, or whether they are allowed.
How does the contractor know it's a community pile?
Right.
Well, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we've recognized some and kind of picked them up anyway, but that's not what the contract says.
If the pile is too big, you can call solid waste office.
And that's what we do with the door hanger.
Yeah. Kenny, we've got Jesse and his partner in the audience, and
yes,
I see with a hand up wanting to speak. Can we recognize them and let them maybe start looking for a solution to the problems? We're not looking to change anything, but if something don't happen, we may have to.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear their solutions. We meet with them, monthly? And code enforcement meets weekly to brainstorm, and we meet with them monthly to brainstorm. So if they have something new, I'm certainly open to hear it.
My name's Doug Matthews. I'm one of the dependable waste owners. And nice to see you this morning.
Thank you.
I think I have an idea that may work for everybody, that would take a lot of pressure off of the residents that's leaving the waste and stuff, sitting out by the road, and take the pressure off the commissioners that are receiving the calls. One thing we could do is and we're talking about being able to notify the resident rather than having the code enforcement have to go out there all the time, is go ahead and pick the pile up, make a note, get it to whoever you all decide it needs to go to, and maybe send that person a letter and keep records of who we're sending letters to. At that point, they should know, and then and we'll also give that information to the drivers. If they continue to put out, oversized piles and things, because of the time it does take to pick up the additional waste, we would have to have some assistance in letting them know that we can't continue to pick it up that way all the time, because to go and pick up a whole truckload and take it to the landfill, it takes away from us being able to service the residents properly on schedule. Another thing with the schedule issue, and I know we talked about it, and I think Jesse and everyone has spoken about it, is the Tuesday East College route. It is huge, and that's normally where we have a situation where we can't complete, especially if there's a storm or something come through. We would like to be able to move a portion of that to Friday and make 2 route days out of that. If we could do that, that would certainly help us stay on schedule and eliminate some of the calls. We want to do whatever it takes to make it work for the city of Griffin.
I mean, that would be seasonal. I think the city used to run it like that. We had certain areas that did have a more frequent pickup in those seasonal months. So I would like to see something that you could put together to propose that. But how much more of a fee are we talking if you, or is that included in the same?
Well, I'm not saying add a fee to it. If we could go ahead and pick it up the first time, send the letters out to the residents.
You're saying add a day to the pickup?
Yes, add a day to the pickup.
Right now you're doing it in a 4-day window.
Go to 5.
And you want to go to a 5-day window.
Go to a 5-day window.
Split that Tuesday thing in half.
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're saying?
And handle.
But you could do Tuesday, Wednesday, the Maple. You got basically Maple Drive and East College Street on the Tuesday.
And those are the heaviest route days that we have.
So potentially do those Tuesday, Wednesday, move the Wednesday to Thursday, the Thursday to Friday. Possibly like that way, and that way you could.
We could do it that way, or just move a section and send letters out to that certain group of people, or certain group of homes, rather than having.
How many times a month do you service them?
Every other week.
Every other week. Same schedule.
Yes, ma'am. It's every other week.
But you just need to spread that Tuesday out. Yes. The size of the.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's the route that causes us problems and causes us to get behind on schedule. It's just like 2 weeks ago when we had the storm damage. When you get storm damage, it's almost impossible to complete that.
Well, that's where the most trees are. I mean, we understand it's a forest there.
And on the first point you made about the big piles.
Yes, sir.
Generally, folks, once they put a big pile, they're only going to do that once or twice a year. From my experience, I usually do my yard twice a year, and there's a substantial pile. I just balance what I put out there. But if someone puts out a big pile, the odds of them putting out another big pile.
One of the things you run into is they have contractors come through and cut trees down and put the trees and things out there.
We shouldn't be picking up trees.
Should not be picking up
it says limbs. It does not say trees, stumps, anything like that.
Right. And that would be something, because of the amount of time that it would take to pick up a whole tree, that we would probably have to notify and code enforcement go out. But the other way, by picking it up the first time and sending them a letter, that'll take a lot of stress off of the code enforcement having to go out and actually see the resident all the time. And we're trying our best to figure out how the best way for this to work for you all and us.
So if we went to keep the Monday as is, basically route the northeast quadrant, do Tuesday, Wednesday, spreading up the East College Maple Drive section. Wednesday goes to Thursday, and Thursday goes to Friday.
That's correct.
And would you still be able to handle any special handling fees on the Friday?
We would do the
special. Or would you do that on the day of what?
Friday and or Saturday.
We'd like to and us pick that up on Saturday, have that opportunity.
We have that extra revenue, we come to y'all for those special handling.
And there will be less special handling fees coming to us to begin with anyway, because we'll be picking those piles up to start with. The only thing that we would really have to have code enforcement go out on if something underneath the power line that we can't get to.
Grass clippings are still an issue?
I'm sorry?
Grass clippings are still, you still need those bagged?
That would certainly help us if we could get the grass clipping back. It takes so much time to get the grass clippings up because they spread them out. And the other thing is they're putting multiple piles out in yards. So you're having to stop and set up multiple times in one yard. If we could get something out to them and educate them to please just put it in one pile, that would help us also, which I think will help the commissioners in not getting phone calls also.
Right. So one pile, bagging clippings continues. So your areas, you're normally a Thursday. I think you're Thursday. We'd go to Friday. And then who is Wednesdays is basically
keep them from having some letters out.
Wednesday's Evergreen Forest back around.
Let me ask them that.
Yeah. Is
Mr. Holbrook, let me ask you a question. Rather than the city having to send all the letters and things out, or however you're going to advertise that, if we make those changes, rather than changing everybody's days throughout the week, we could take a section that needs to be taken off of the Tuesday, which is the heaviest part, and put it on Friday. Just move it to Friday if that would work for y'all on the leaf and limb, and that way you don't have to notify, the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday also. And then you're just dealing with
my thought is if you could get it, would be you get as much as you can on Tuesday and then you continue on Wednesday, because folks are expecting it to be within that 24-hour.
Right, and the way you have your Tuesday route set, that's what I was saying, rather than it affecting everybody throughout the week. The way I'm talking about doing it would only affect a certain group of homes that we would move to a Friday, and you don't have to notify everybody of the changes. You just notify that particular group coming off of Tuesday to Friday.
Just take that half a route off Tuesday, change it to Friday, and notify those residents.
And that's the only ones it would affect, because we would be able to stay closer to the schedule.
Do you know how you would decide right now where that cutoff is? I was just thinking the majority of people, they're seniors in that area, and they're going to spend a lot of time on the weekends doing yard work and things, and that seasonal. I don't really mean the storm situations, but then you're asking them that they're used to it being picked up most of the time on Tuesday, so now they just need to wait till Friday, and that might change the way they do things. I don't know, but I'm just curious how you would divide that, and do you have an idea on that?
We have been looking at the maps because that area produces so much yard waste, and we could present something to you all in a short period of time to look at to see if that's something. We're willing
to make it work, because what we're doing right now really isn't working, but and I'm new, and you know that, so a year is not a feasible amount of time for anything that you start. Just my history with government, it takes about 3 to really realize, but we don't want to wait 3, but we need a solution sooner, because I'm just coming into it. I don't know what these guys have been dealing with, but it's daily phone calls, it's dinner time phone calls, and I cannot imagine what the city staff internally, and we really need to find a solution now and really implement it, and we've got to make this work.
And I think most of those calls, and you all take them, we try to address some of the issues and all, but a lot of those calls, I believe, are because we're not picking up a certain pile or mixed waste. See, that's another issue that we have. If it's mixed yard waste with trash, then we can't take it to the Shoal Creek limb spot there, so it's pretty much contaminated, so you'll have to take that to a different location.
And folks say they're being consistent. There'll be someone that'll have tree limbs with grass clippings piled on top of it, and they'll pick it up. So the little old lady across the street sees that they're picking up their grass clippings, but not picking up mine because I have it in a pile. So I know sometimes y'all have to try to think outside the box and decide, hey, this makes sense, I can pick it up, but it shows.
Well, and that's
what we were trying to do was help out in that situation.
Right, and I understand what you're doing, but it doesn't make sense to the 88-year-old lady that's feeling she's not being treated.
How many of the piles would have trash in it? Furniture, anything of that nature? What percentage? And I think the city picks that stuff up, don't they?
That's generally on our special
handling.
Special handling.
We notify the city, and then they go out and give them a price on picking up the special handling items.
How often does that happen?
You got the list.
Basically, I mean, we ran into it every week, but most of the time when you get your trash and stuff mixed in, you know, it's just in certain areas of the city. It's not all over the city. You know, there's a lot of places where we pick up where people just walk up and down the street and they just throw the trash and garbage and all that in the pile. Then, you know, we got residents that clean up a yard that just throw all of it in that pile. So, you know, it's kind of spread out, no one particular place.
And if we need to, we could pick that up and send a letter out with that rather than have them make phone calls. I mean, we'll do whatever, you know, whatever you think will help keep the phone calls down and make the residents happy.
Well, no offense to you guys, but I would rather take the route of picking it up because, I mean, honestly, I know you're out there doing the work. I hear the trucks. I see the trucks. I see you there. But most of the time, and this is probably just going to sound terrible, but our area continuously looks like a war zone. I mean, even though you're picking up, it's just, I'm sick of seeing the debris and the piles and whatever it takes to get it picked up. I don't know about you guys, but it's an eyesore. And it's a lot of work on everyone, and I know you're doing a great job, but we need this stuff picked up.
Well, and that's what we were trying. We were trying to go by the ordinance, which is what we all talked about a year ago. And that seems to have created more phone calls, I think, by doing that. And that's why
What percentages of grass clippings not bagged?
It's
getting better.
It's a lot better than it was when we began. Now, you run into certain residents and they're not going to bag them. I mean, you know, but we've gotten a lot of them that, you know, that wasn't bagging, that now they are bagging. You know, I know.
Or composting. Mulching it.
Right. You know, I know everybody rides up and down South Hill Street. You know, there was a resident there that, you know, wasn't bagging. Well, they started bagging.
He's got 7 bags there this morning, I believe.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it's getting better. But one of the things with the grass clippings is, you know, there's really not an easy way to pick up grass clippings, you know.
Other than raking it and shoveling.
Right. And then, of course, you know, when you do your grapple with grass clippings, your chances of doing yard damage. If I run a vacuum truck, you suck it up and it blows out the top. So, you know, this bagging is really making things a lot better for us and the residents.
Have you ever advertised just taking a bag and say, hey, this is what you need to use. Here's a bag. Go buy them at Home Depot, Lowe's, or Ace, wherever you buy them.
We have it, but that's one of the reasons I say by picking it up the first time and getting a letter out to them, and maybe with some information in that letter that we can put together to where they know what to use and where they can actually get that bag from. But go ahead and pick it up that first time just to eliminate that phone call and get a letter to them.
Well, I think your ideas are very positive. I think you will see that if we do pick up the larger piles, the odds of them coming back within 6 months will be slim to none. They'll basically have done their seasonal cleanup. If you can suck that piece of.
Are you guys aware of the community piles? Do you guys kind of know where these?
We kind of know. We kind of know where most of them are. Yes.
Sometimes a new one will show up that we're not aware of, but this way, if we sent the letter out, at least they would know, and they could let us know that's a community pile.
And then broadening the Tuesday to Friday, finding a zone, whether you can do it in one day or whether you've got to spread it over 2 Fridays. I mean, however.
Yes, sir. And like right now, we're on the schedule, but if we have a storm come through, that Tuesday is normally what puts us behind, and that would certainly help to eliminate the phone calls to anyone.
And Tuesday goes out to Grandview. Does it go out past the Methodist Church, or is that?
That goes into Wednesday.
Yes. Methodist Church.
And say that's what. And that Tuesday is what causes us not to get to that Wednesday. And say on your Tuesday routes, you know, like as long as everything's normal, we're okay. But when you get into the trimming season, when you get into the fall season, your leaves, your extra, it makes it very difficult to be able to complete those routes and go to the Wednesday route on time.
But you are definitely going to keep it on that Friday. You're not going to, if you get caught up, do it on Tuesday and not show up on Friday.
No, sir.
No.
So you're going to have a designated area that will be the
There may be times that if we finish a route early, we may go into the next day just to make sure that, but we'll go back over that the following day also. We won't, like we're on schedule now. So we came in here, what was it, Friday?
Well, we actually started on Tuesday route Friday.
Picking up College Street just to try to get ahead a little bit because it's so large.
Yeah, and then we ran Monday's route yesterday, completed it in time, and went into that route a little bit just so it would be lighter today.
And I guess the last little issue I get, I know it's a tough thing, in terms of the hydraulic leaks, there's a gentleman that continually wears me out about hydraulic leaks. I know diesel equipment and stuff like that leak.
We have brought everything in.
I know you have.
We just bought another new truck and we have another one ordered. We've also, one of the things we did is we bought it with a new system they have. It's a 1-yard box that actually comes out and you can pick small items up and throw in it rather than having to try to throw it up over the truck. So it's kind of new and we're learning that system too, but I think it'll help us all in the long run.
Our plans are by the end of this year to have all new equipment in Griffin.
I appreciate that too. I've seen the changes, just noticed
we
the difference of
appreciate
equipment.
the
It makes a difference.
Mr. Smith, can we live with these changes on the staff side? I know you say.
Whatever you recommend, Wilson. I feel like I'm going to sound negative no matter what I say, but, after dealing with this for so much, it's hard not to. But, just to mitigate kind of what they're saying, if we're going to pick it up anyway and then send them a letter, then they're going to get used to us picking it up anyway, so they're going to put it right back out there the next time, letter or no letter. Most of the time, if they were reading the letters and information that we're putting out, they wouldn't put it out there to start with. So to say that we're going to send them a letter and everything's going to be great after that, I don't have a positive feeling about that. But as I told you earlier, I'm open to any suggestions, or we can just pick it up and send them a bill. In the past, we haven't done that because that's going to cause more problems than we're used to. That's why when there's a special handling pile, we go out and tell them ahead of time how much it's going to cost before we pick it up, to give them the option to handle it themselves or pay us to handle it. So, I don't foresee these problems going away, so if we're going to keep doing what we're doing, we'll just deal with them.
But the schedule situation, if we could get that spread out 5 days, the potential of that issue would be eliminated.
I would hope so, but there again, we go changing the schedule. It is what it is. We'll try anything, and the staff will do whatever we can do to try to make it work.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Is a consensus to move forward with these changes?
So the Tuesday, some of them will go under Friday.
We'll have a Friday.
So you just have to notify those people who have Tuesday pickups instead of notifying everybody in the city.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying if they got trees and all this other stuff cut down, they picking it up the first time, and then send them a letter or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
They're saying that they will pick up large piles that exceed the 4 by 8 by 4. But I think in accordance, if it looks like they're abused, if they've got hunks of
Okay, so on the other hand, on the north side, when you come upon limbs and leaves and furniture and everything, how you gonna handle that?
Well, the furniture is still a special handling fee, no matter where it's at.
The big tree is the special handling fee.
If someone puts a pine tree that's 36 in diameter and cut up out there from a
That's special handling.
That'd be a special handling. I mean, it shouldn't even be picked up by the city. The contractor should end up hauling that off.
Consistency.
And what we're saying is the oversized piles of limbs and things. The large trees, we would still need some assistance with them from the city to make sure that it was either done on special handling.
Okay, and I'm kind of like Kenny. It's so much other stuff that, to me, a large pile of trees is pretty much equivalent to leaving leaves and stove. That's a special handling too. So I'm just saying it's really.
But you can't put demolition debris out there in any situation. You can't put, if someone has an eviction, that's a special handling fee.
So much out there they can't get around that.
So if I do
But
eviction,
if it's mixed with
you still don't pick
trees, right? I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. But then you got to look at that, and then when you look at when you got residents like myself that's calling about a junk pile with everything in it, compared to you're saying over on College of Maple Drive, you got a big tree, but you're gonna pick that up, but you're gonna leave this junk on. It's just, if you're gonna do that, pick my junk up with the trash and everything, and then send somebody a letter. Good luck with it.
And if it's mixed with trash, if it's just mixed with trash and stuff, and all over the city, that's what I was talking about. We'll still pick that up. It's just like sofas and things like that would still be on special handling because they don't. And if we have limbs and stuff there, we can pull as many of the limbs out as we can.
I'm not being argumentative.
Oh no, I understand why people are putting trash. But why people are putting?
I understand what you're saying, but the people on the north side where the trash is are also paying the same amount of yard waste. Right. So they're expecting something too. Even though we don't call every day complaining about it, it's people on the north side that call me that said they're not picking them up. They have their reasons for not picking it up, or it's running behind, but it's the same thing. You got to figure it out, not just for that area. You got to figure it out citywide.
Right. Anything that doesn't qualify as yard waste goes under the same guidelines that it has in the past. That's going to require a special handling. We're only talking about non-compliant yard waste.
And a big tree.
But again,
would be over 4x4. It's not compliant.
A tree would have to go.
Depending on the size of the tree, sometimes their equipment won't even pick it up because it's too large.
And someone
and that's what he's saying. Even if the pile is, you're saying instead of 4x8, 4x whatever it is, you're getting a whole truckload. That's not compliant.
Right now, there's a pine tree that's cut up sitting on the side of Pine Ridge that has tree hunks that are as big as a wheel, which shouldn't be in the parameters of what's needed. I mean, it's just too big.
Exactly, I understand what you're saying. That's not compliant, and it should be picked up. It should be a special handling.
Correct.
Just like if it's a pile of leaves and a stove, it's not compliant, and it shouldn't be picked up.
I look at a stove and trash and furniture different than I do with yard waste. One is God-made, one is man-made. And so we're dealing with yard waste and materials that...
I understand what you're saying, but I look at not compliant. It's not compliant, okay. Whether it's this or whether it's that. And actually you're...
I mean, we tell them to go by the contract, but they were offering an opportunity for us to figure out how to take some of the burden off the staff and try to do something a little outside the box. But if that's not it, but if you feel like that's
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if you're going to deal with it non-compliant in this area that way, then you need to figure out a way to deal with non-compliant in the other area.
But I have no sympathy for folks that put litter in trash piles. That is, to me, that is just. Why do people not put litter in a trash bag and put it inside of a trash can? I mean, I don't understand that.
The piles that aren't picked up typically, Cynthia, I didn't realize there are piles that aren't compliant because they have debris and trash. Do you guys see that all the time too? Okay, so that's a whole new, I mean, I know just the calls that I get, the piles, they're not compliant because they're relatively large. There's one right now on a community lot, and this is just the calls I get. I didn't realize it was that widespread, but this particular pile, the citizen called me a few weeks ago, and I asked Kenny to please go out and look at it, and it was yard waste, but it was on a community pile. It's actually in Mr. Wilson's neighborhood, so yeah, it's in your neighborhood. Anyway, but I got...
You're not yours, is it, William?
No, sir.
Well, in his old neighborhood. So in the pile that you all skipped because no one knew, I mean, there was no hanger or anything. Well, I got a phone call yesterday that the pile continuously gets bigger and bigger and bigger, so that's the type calls I'm getting, but I didn't realize we had piles of trash, so those exist too, and they don't get picked up, but they get cited or not, or what happens with that?
Well, eventually they'll get cited, but if it's a community pile, which is normally on a vacant lot, we don't know who to cite. Because it's not fair to cite the person that owns the lot who don't even live there or sometimes don't even live anywhere close to there, so you really don't have anybody to cite. So for the most part, they're just sucking it up and picking it up anyway, and nobody's paying for it. But don't think, I mean, again, we'll do whatever, but don't think either of these suggestions is going to relieve any work from the staff. It's just going to create more work because, again, once we start picking up every pile and sending them a letter, staff time, and then they're going to be used to picking it up, so it's going to confuse them more, and then we got to send out letters. But we'll do that, and we'll try it and see what happens.
Like to try something and revisit it in a couple of months or so and see how it's working, and if we need to make some adjustments, we do whatever we need to do to make it work. We know it's a challenge for everyone. And how many, Ms. Ward, do you get a lot of calls with the trash piles mixed with waste?
No, I don't get a lot of calls. But I see it daily.
Yes.
But I see it daily because, of course, the people that's dumping and most of these areas are rental areas, and the landlords don't really, they don't care. And what's in my head right now, what I'm thinking is it has nothing to do with y'all. But when you talk about common piles, in my neighborhood there is a dumpster that has been rented by a gentleman that is supposed to be rehabbing a house, which has become a common dumping area. People drive from other areas, dump their trash in his yard. And it's causing a serious rodent problem about 2 doors down from me. My husband is having to rat poison pretty much the whole neighborhood to try to keep big rats from running across our yard. So when you talk about common piles or I feel like probably that we're renting this roll-off to this gentleman. They're not doing anything with it, but it's still sitting there. So how long will it sit there before something is, somebody tell them to move it, or it's just 2 doors down from me, an abandoned house has become a dump.
Is it something we could run by and pick up? And
treat it like a junk car?
No, I don't think you can pick it up. I think the city needs to get that roll off.
Well, I'll have solid waste check on the status of that roll-off.
And also
all of our dumpsters are like magnets. I mean, we catch people from out of town dumping in the one right here in the parking deck. So it's just a matter of catching them when they do it.
They never dump at Carrington Place.
No.
What do you do when you catch them?
Sir, if we catch them, we can cite them, but we have to catch them in the act.
We had one on East Central. Neighbor gave us information who it was, and they were able to actually put a case, I don't know where it stands out, on someone dumping on East Central illegally, just dumping yard waste and debris, and they comply.
And I'm sorry, but that was playing in my mind. And that has nothing to do with y'all. And like I said, I'm not being trying to be argumentative, but when you start to do that, then you need to consider, we need to consider citywide rather than just, I know the people in that area paying their yard waste, but the people in the area that are renting are paying their yard waste too. A lot of them never get yard waste picked up. A lot of them don't have grass. You know, there's no grass clippings. So they're, for the ones that are paying and are wanting to use it, we don't want to see this stuff sitting either. So you have to start looking at, well, what are you going to do over here? Because then if you do that over there, then I'm going to complain.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to complain about what's going on over here. I want mine taken care of too.
Yes, ma'am. Do we want to do something that we can run by and clean up, like a, not necessarily a special pickup, but rather than contaminating a load, because that's what that does in the yard waste. If you put it in with the yard waste, it contaminates the load and has to go to a different landfill. Maybe marking those to start with, like we're talking about with the trees, go back and pick them up in a load by itself, so it don't contaminate the remainder of the limbs and stuff that you're out picking up already, and get the letters out to them at that time.
In actuality, I don't expect for y'all to pick up a mattress with the limbs.
Right.
You know, and maybe I was just kind of, you know, but you understand what, you know, my point was.
Yes, ma'am. And we're, like I said, we'll work with you however, whatever you think and the staff thinks will work.
And I don't want you just picking up everything, because then that would totally contradict the rules that you have out there for what your standards are. But I do realize when we were working on a situation a few weeks ago, there were piles that were compliant that were skipped. So I just meant we need to really problem solve and get those piles picked up. And I don't want you to go out of your way, but I want the services we pay for to be completed.
Mr. Francis, before you say anything, I want to thank you for your dedication and not jumping off the bridge or anything. We really love you and appreciate your hard work in this whole process.
And I love you too.
Thank you.
I would ask one thing of all of that I've listened to for us to help be more cohesive. There are times that whenever you have a citizen call you, that's what they do, and I respect and understand that. But it might be 6 hours later that I get the word. With all due respect, the thing that I would ask you to do is to call solid waste in lieu of calling Mr. Smith. And I'm not saying to keep him out of the loop. He knows everything I do. But if you're already a citizen that's got an issue, and if he's out of town or if he's doing something and I get the word late, I can't fix it if I don't know about it that day. The constituents want something done that day or an answer. So all I'm asking is if you call us, because if we don't know, I get caught flat-footed 4 o'clock in the afternoon and trying to get some help there, and then they're calling you at 8 o'clock at night at dinner time saying nothing got done. So that will help streamline. If I could get that, that's the only thing that I think that we could work together and pass on. I know that that's the chain of command. I respect that. But we're here to try to help, and I can't help if I don't know about it.
You've done a great job for the ones that I get calls. I send them to your office, not necessarily you, but...
Send them to me.
You want them to you?
Me. Because it may be later on, because you expect an answer, your constituents expect an answer, and I can't give an answer when somebody calls me, there's a pile at 1234 Sycamore Street. Okay, it's supposed to be there. So I'm not trying to get cynical, I'm just saying if there's some way that we can kind of streamline that, it would be really helpful, and that would kind of take the pressure off of y'all.
I had a problem last week, and I sent Phil an email, or is it this week?
This week.
Yeah, I sent him an email and said, hey, this lady's backdoor pickup wasn't confident.
And
a couple hours later, she called me back and she said, I appreciate you handled that. So just within a couple of hours, they took care of it. But you got to go to the source.
And see, I got direct contact with Jesse and Doug and his staff, whereas Kenny does as well. But that can cut through a whole lot of muddying the water, so to speak. So I would appreciate that very much if I could ask that, and I think we can help a lot more.
Thank you.
A red.
Probably when I brought back from Savannah.
No, this is one of the ones. This is what's laying out in our yard.
What is it?
A rat.
Awesome.
Okay. Look at the popping man.
Are there any questions, comments? Mr. Connor, do you have anything you'd like to say since you get...
Just remember, if we're going to make any significant changes, we're going to have to amend the contract because our contract is still valid. So if you are changing pile sizes or how that's going to be picked up or changing a particular policy that is addressed in that contract, we will have to amend the contract and bring it back to you for approval. So what I'm hearing right now doesn't necessarily do that, I don't think, based on how that route is listed. But I don't think we go into detail as to what is scheduled when, and we just reference the map. So if that's all we're changing, we won't have to amend the contract, but I will look at that and let you know.
So if the map changes in terms of the daily?
If the map changes, we just reference the map, so the contract itself won't have to change. But if we're going to change pile sizes and how we pick up those that aren't in compliance, we're going to have to change the contract because we very specifically say the city's responsibility in the contract is to strictly enforce the ordinance. The ordinance specifically says what the pile size can be. So if we're not going to do that anymore, we've got to change the contract.
We're not changing the policy.
No, we're not. They're going to take over. They're going to...
Should it be necessary?
The contract says limbs. It does not mention trees, period.
No. Correct, and we do have
Do we need to change that and put that we don't pick up trees?
That's already in our ordinance, and it does say that if you have a contracted tree professional cut down a tree and they do not take it off, then they're not in compliance, and we can cite that person. Again, the problem is we don't always catch them doing that, so if we come along later, see that a tree has been cut down either professionally or maybe by the homeowner themselves, we can cite the homeowner, and then if we do cite the homeowner, a lot of times they're going to tell us who did it. So we do have a provision in the ordinance already that says that has to be done by the contracted servicer.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Mr. Smith? We adjourn. Anything else? No. We have a motion, Mr. McCord, to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second. Ms. Ward, all in favor, please rise. See y'all tonight at 6. Yes, sir. We did. That's paying for it.
Good job.
Too hot. What I do. Take care.
Hey, Ms. Kenny. Good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, we got it again. It's been out there more than a month. I'm like, but we having to go to the hardware store 2 or 3 times a month just to get rat poison to put under these 2 substandard houses that's next to us. Rats running across my front yard big as a cat.
My biggest complaint
I mean, we have prepaid the invoice to me. I'm kind of in the middle. I thought there really was something.
Well, no, he got they cited him, and he asked for a permit, and they put his house out. They gutted the house inside, but now it's just sitting there not doing anything. And now people are kind of starting to come and dump there. Like I said, the rats run across, so we already got a problem. So we've had to practically concrete our house down to the ground, trying to make sure that rats are not digging up the house. But that's what it is.
So what we need to do on the dumpster situation, well, probably dumpster, some folks look at it and just leave it there, never use it. There can be a spot. So there may be 30 days for that.
Well, Tyrone put onto the house that's immediately next door. What 2 sons immediately next door. The house space is
I agree. Poison inside. Y'all the yard waste contamination.
Man, I certainly appreciate you doing that.
Not so much. Pour rat poison under this house because they're running across. But they only run across the inside of my backyard. But they run across the house.
Yeah, but you can just do your, like, and they got people but you can put it all over, but don't mean there's got to be some. And I'm thinking, if people are suggestions of what they're doing. I think people have started down.
Agreed. If they got trash in construction.
Or anybody else will wait for construction.
Then you sent your team to engineers out there. I probably got 15 replies on that.
You gotta make sure that whatever he's paid for.
Mr. Tinsley got the situation resolved, really. They're saying, thanks, we're really appreciative.
It's $200.
You know, people work on
Where's as far as taking down?
and then y'all find out, well,
I think he thinks he's going to have the house that's immediately next door. And I was cutting Justin, they have put so much like pictures on that thing. They cut the grass and then they instead of putting the yard waste. If you don't have nobody putting the yard waste in the so what they did was they piled it right next door, like next to the house, and then they put some out of the curb, so nobody's gonna pick it up. They're not paying anything.
But you can get no response out of no other way, but you can get the kid to get response because he was down there jumping the water.
And like I said, you know, if he's gonna remodel the house, that's one thing. But when it's been there long enough for them to start dumping, people coming in dumping trash.
See, what it is, it costs me because I pick up at my landfill because it's got garbage mixed with it. I can't because EPD will tear mine.
Yeah, well, like I said, they charge. I was taking even Tahoe's texting me all while we at the meeting. Let them see this rat. This is what we have to do with over here.
I'd be happy to do what I have to do.
signature of employees.
I'm going to get mine and bring it to you cheaper. It's in Bill's luggage bags. He's going to stuff the receipt in there. And I know
I will. We're just going to keep playing with
I can't let Truman showing me up over here. You're the right one. Was that for the GMA or for Amelia Allen?
There you are.
All right, I'll bring it back to you.
But,
yeah.
Do you sign this, Teresa?
That's great.
Looks like I had, like we had a, now what I did